You wake up with a list already forming in your head. Targets, milestones, clear statements of what you want next. You tell yourself this is discipline. You call it focus. But notice the tension underneath it, the quiet rigidity, the way your mind keeps returning to the same outcome, checking it, polishing it, rehearsing it. You didn't notice when that fixation replaced awareness. Watch what happens when you speak your goal out loud, when you announce it, when you write it down where others can see it. The room subtly rearranges itself. People adjust. Systems respond. Resistance forms where there was none before. You feel exposed, but you can't explain why. You think clarity gives you control. Yet the moment your objective becomes visible, your freedom narrows. Options disappear. You start defending a direction instead of reading the terrain. You react faster. You commit earlier. You lose the ability to wait. Look closer. The anxiety you feel isn't motivation. It's pressure created by self-declaration. You've locked yourself into a line of movement. Now every delay feels like failure. Every detour feels like weakness. You move because you must, not because the moment is right. This is the discomfort no one warns you about. The subtle loss of leverage that happens the instant your intention becomes obvious. You didn't fall behind. You didn't lose discipline. You simply became readable. And once you are readable, you are steerable. Others don't need to stop you. They only need to predict you. The system doesn't fight your goal. It quietly uses it to guide your behavior. You feel busy. You feel driven. But you are no longer sovereign. You are following a path you revealed before you understood the cost. You are taught that goals are proof of seriousness. That stating them makes you disciplined, respectable, trustworthy. That good, capable people declare what they want and pursue it openly. You followed that belief carefully. You planned. You announced. You aligned your identity with visible objectives. And you were promised momentum, support, respect, progress. Instead, something else happened. The more clearly you defined your goals, the more resistance appeared. People began to anticipate you, to manage you, to subtly shape your decisions. Opportunities narrowed rather than expanded. You felt boxed in by your own clarity. This wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a lack of effort. It was the punishment for obeying a myth. The world does not reward intention. It rewards alignment with how systems actually work. Declared goals signal direction, and direction invites interference. Nature does not announce where it is going. Markets do not reveal their next move. Predators do not explain their trajectory. Only the inexperienced expose their destination before arriving. You are told that transparency builds trust. In reality, transparency builds predictability. And predictability is not respected. It is exploited. Systems adjust around it. Competitors prepare for it. Gatekeepers learn how to slow it down. Your mistake was moral, not strategic. You believed sincerity protected you. You believed effort mattered more than positioning. You assumed that wanting something openly made it more likely to happen. Reality is indifferent to that belief. Psychology does not care about virtue. Structures do not reward honesty of desire. They respond to leverage, timing, and unreadability. You work wrong for wanting progress. You are misled about how progress is secured. The pain you feel now is the friction between how you are taught to move and how power actually circulates. There is a reason strategists rarely speak about objectives in public. Sun Tzu warned that when you know the enemy and yourself, you need not fear the outcome of 100 battles, but he was more precise than most remember. He emphasized deception, concealment, and fluidity, not as tricks, but as survival laws. This part is often softened or omitted because it makes people uncomfortable. In modern systems theory, the same principle appears under different language. The moment a system reveals its end state, it can be modeled. Once it can be modeled, it can be influenced. Once it can be influenced, it is no longer autonomous. This is not cynicism. This is mechanics. Those who operate with power understand this and stay quiet about it. That silence is often misread as indecision or lack of ambition. In reality, it is strategic patience. The controversial truth is that declaration is not courage. Restraint is. Psychologists know that humans unconsciously respond to stated intentions by either aligning against them or exploiting them. Economists know that visible targets distort behavior and invite arbitrage. Military doctrine knows that fixed objectives create predictable lines of advance. These disciplines agree on one thing: exposure precedes control. This truth is rarely celebrated because it contradicts the moral story people prefer. The story that honesty of intention equals strength. But power has never been about moral comfort. It has always been about accurate perception. Understanding this does not make you manipulative. It makes you literate in reality. You stop mistaking openness for virtue and start recognizing it as vulnerability. You don't become deceptive. You become selective. The authority here is not a person. It is the convergence of strategy, psychology, and systems. They all point to the same conclusion. Power flows to those who move without announcing where they intend to land. You're tired in a very specific way. Not physically, strategically. You've been doing everything you were told was right, and still feeling exposed, rushed, subtly cornered. You plan carefully, yet somehow end up reacting. You set targets, yet feel pulled by forces you didn't choose. The confusion comes from sensing that effort isn't translating into control. What exhausts you most is not the work. It's the constant self-correction. The pressure to stay consistent with what you already declared. The quiet fear of changing direction because others are watching. You don't say it out loud, but you feel it. Once you name a goal, it owns you. There is relief in realizing this isn't a personal failure. The frustration has a structure. You were handed a model that trades adaptability for moral comfort. It feels honest, but it leaves you exposed, and exposure requires constant defense. What follows will not motivate you. It will unburden you. It will remove the obligation to explain yourself to the world before you understand the terrain. The lies you absorbed will be dismantled, not emotionally, but mechanically. You're not about to receive hacks or clever tactics. You're about to learn how to move without broadcasting movement. How to let time, positioning, and silence do the work you've been forcing through effort. Once you see this clearly, you will notice it everywhere. In people who seem calm while outcomes bend toward them. In systems that reward patience over declaration. You will not be able to unsee how much power leaks through unnecessary exposure. This understanding changes how you stand, not just how you plan. And once it settles, returning to your old way of operating will feel impossible. There are 5 shifts you need to see. Not techniques to apply, not habits to track, not goals to replace your old ones. These are perceptual corrections. Once they lock in, behavior changes automatically because your understanding of leverage changes. Each shift removes a leak, a place where intention used to spill out and invite pressure. Together, they reorganize how you move through systems without announcing movement. You won't be learning how to get what you want faster. You'll be learning how to stop making yourself easy to manage. The first concerns exposure. How revealing direction collapses optionality and hands others the map. The second concerns positioning. How power minds place themselves where outcomes come to them instead of chasing outcomes directly. The third addresses fixation. How rigidity, even when disciplined, creates handles others can pull. The fourth corrects attention. How letting others move first gives you information without cost. The fifth closes the loop. How indirect control shapes results without visible pursuit. These are not separate ideas. They stack. Each one depends on the previous. Miss one, and the structure weakens. Understand them in sequence, and you stop operating at the surface level where effort is visible and contested. You'll notice something important as we move through them. None require confrontation. None require domination. None require explaining yourself. A discipline is internal. The effect is external. You won't announce these shifts. Others will sense them. The absence of urgency, the lack of explanation, the way you no longer rush to define yourself by an outcome. That silence is not emptiness, it's space, and space is where leverage lives. The first shift is understanding that visibility creates gravity. The moment you expose an intention, forces begin pulling on it. Expectations form. Countermoves appear. Timelines tighten. This is not personal. It's structural. In economics, a visible price target invites speculation. In physics, a fixed point attracts pressure. In warfare, a known objective becomes the battlefield. Your old behavior was to clarify early, to define success precisely, to move straight toward it. You believed this was strength. What it actually did was collapse your field of movement. Every action became measured against a single outcome. Every delay felt like loss. You became heavy. The new behavior is restraint. You allow direction to exist internally without demanding expression. You move through positioning instead of pursuit. Instead of heading straight for the prize, you place yourself where multiple outcomes can reach you. You don't chase leverage. You inhabit it. When you stop exposing intention, people respond differently. They can't preempt you. They can't manage you. They test instead of block. They reveal instead of resist. You gain information without paying for it. Silence forces others to move first. This is not passivity. It's conservation. You're no longer leaking energy into explanation and defense. Discipline replaces urgency. You act when alignment appears, not when impatience demands motion. The power here doesn't come from secrecy as a tactic. It comes from internal order. You are no longer compelled to declare who you will become before you arrive. You remain light, adaptable, unreadable. And because you are unreadable, the system cannot easily shape you. The second shift is recognizing that power does not advance in straight lines. It settles into advantageous positions and lets outcomes drift toward it. In chess, the strongest players don't announce checkmate plans. They control key squares. In markets, dominant players don't chase returns. They secure placement where value accumulates. Positioning bends probability without force. Your old behavior was fixation. You locked onto a target and measured every move by how directly it served that target. This made you efficient, but brittle. Anyone who understood your objective could influence your path simply by obstructing it or offering a shortcut that benefited them more than you. The new behavior is situational awareness. You prioritize where you stand over what you declare. You ask where leverage concentrates, where information flows, where decisions are shaped. You move laterally, not forward. You let conditions mature instead of forcing resolution. When you operate this way, others sense stability rather than hunger. You're no longer signaling need through urgency. People stop trying to steer you because they can't see where steering would lead. They offer more. They reveal constraints. They negotiate against themselves. This isn't manipulation. It's patience backed by clarity. You're not avoiding goals. You're refusing to let goals narrow your perception. By staying flexible, you remove the handles others use to pull you off balance. The discipline here is subtle. You resist the impulse to rush toward visible targets. You trust placement over pursuit. And over time, you notice outcomes aligning with you, without announcement, without strain, without exposure. The third shift is understanding how fixation becomes a lever others can pull. The more rigid your objective, the easier it is to move you without resistance. In engineering, a fixed joint absorbs stress until it snaps. In biology, organisms that cannot adapt go extinct. Flexibility is not weakness. It is resilience. Your old behavior was commitment to a single outcome. Once you chose it, you defended it. You filtered information through it. You ignored signals that suggested a better route or a different result. This made you look decisive, but it made you manipulable. Anyone who knew what you wanted could delay you, bait you, or exhaust you by controlling access to that outcome. The new behavior is optionality. You hold direction loosely and attention sharply. You allow multiple paths to remain viable. You don't argue with reality when it changes. You adjust without announcing the adjustment. This removes friction and preserves momentum. When others interact with you now, they feel less control. They can't corner you with ultimatums. They can't slow you by withholding one specific outcome. You're calm because nothing singular owns you. That calm unsettles people more than aggression ever could. This flexibility is internal discipline. It requires you to release ego attachment to a specific result. You stop proving commitment through rigidity. You prove it through endurance. Power responds to this. Systems open when they can't predict your breaking point. By refusing fixation, you remove the pressure points. You stay intact while others reveal where they are stiff, desperate, and exposed. The fourth shift is learning to let movement happen without matching it. When you remain still, others disclose themselves. In surveillance, the stationary observer sees more than the one rushing forward. In negotiation, the first to speak reveals their limits. Information flows toward silence. Your old behavior was premature motion. You reacted quickly to fill space, to show progress, to reassure yourself that something was happening. Each response revealed timing, preference, and tolerance. You thought responsiveness built momentum. It actually built a profile others could read. The new behavior is measured stillness. You don't rush to respond. You don't clarify unless clarity serves you. You allow gaps to exist. In those gaps, others move. They explain. They justify. They show you where they're constrained and what they value. This changes how the world engages with you. People slow down. They test carefully. They stop assuming they understand you. You gain leverage not by asserting, but by observing. Control shifts without confrontation. This stillness is not detachment. It's attention without impulse. You are present, but not compelled. You listen more than you speak. You let patterns form before acting. The discipline here is resisting the urge to be seen as active. You allow effectiveness to replace visibility. By staying unreadable, you invite revelation. And what others reveal gives you influence without effort. A fifth shift closes the structure. Control is most effective when it is indirect. In physics, the most stable systems regulate through feedback loops, not force. In strategy, outcomes are shaped by environment more than command. You don't push the river. You shape the banks. Your old behavior was pursuit. You aimed at visible targets and applied effort directly. This made you obvious. Others could see what you wanted and decide whether to block, delay, or tax you for it. Every move cost energy. The new behavior is environmental control. You influence conditions rather than chase results. You adjust timing, access, and positioning so that the outcome becomes the natural consequence. When the result arrives, it feels unforced because it is. People respond differently to this. They don't feel pressured. They feel guided. Resistance drops because there is nothing to resist. You're no longer pulling. You're arranging. This is where many misunderstand power. They think it requires dominance. It doesn't. It requires coherence. Your internal order shapes your external impact. Because you are not attached to a visible target, you can let events resolve themselves in your favor. The discipline here is restraint. You trust systems over impulses. You allow indirect influence to do what direct effort never could.